Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Michelle Fondin Author vlog. This is episode 15. And today I'm going to talk about nonviolence starts with me. Now, this is related to this book, The 8 Limbs of Yoga for Modern Times, a practical guide to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, and my thoughts, my musings, little details and examples so that you can fully grasp this concept. It's based on the concept of Ahimsa, which is nonviolence or non-harming. But it's a little bit of riffing here, so it's not totally outlined. And that's why I do a vlog instead of a regular video for certain topics. Now, I've already produced a video describing the first Yama of the first limb of yoga called Ahimsa. And I'll post that link right here so you can view that after this video. Now, I am here with my companions. I've got Grogu, my pad 1. I've got Gudetama, who I really enjoy. They really keep me lighthearted. I've also got this Halloween t-shirt. It says Team Spirit because I am Team Spirit. Not so much Team Human, but Team Spirit. Because after all, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. When I saw this t-shirt, I totally fell in love with it. I'm also here with my Grogu tumbler with Ticino Dandelion Caramel Nut Tea. And we are going to begin talking about nonviolence begins with me. Now you can say this to yourself too. Nonviolence begins with me. The principle of Ahimsa. Now, whether you're a yogi, you're not a yogi, it's not even on your radar, or maybe you are a seasoned yogi or maybe a yoga teacher or in a yoga teacher training program. Non-violence or non-harming is the principle of Ahimsa, and we're going to dig deep into this. Why did this come to mind in particular now, right now in October of 2025? Well, I don't watch the news because of many reasons, and I talk about it in many vlogs and many videos. I don't really keep up on current events because I choose not to. But I'm still human, and I still talk to people, and I enjoy people. I like being around people. I go to social events. So eventually you are going to hear about current events, because if you don't watch the news, surely someone's going to tell you about it. In this world today, a lot of people are really frustrated with the amount of violence that they see and that they hear about. They're very, very reactive to the violence that seems omnipresent. Now, that's always been a topic, but I feel like this year in 2025, a lot of people feel the mounting violence, meaning the exacerbation of violence. And a lot of people get really upset and frustrated and feel like the world is getting worse, worse, and worse. This is an interesting topic to me personally, because my father, this is a story that was passed down onto me, and I experienced a little bit of it. My father, God rest his soul, whom I loved my father. However, he was really involved in politics, and he was really involved in current events. Now, totally the opposite of me. I could care less about politics and I could care less about current events. So my father was really infused in local politics, national politics, as well as watching the news like 24/7. And the story that I was told when I was little and growing up is that my father used to watch the news and he would shout at the news as if the TV could hear him. So he would hear a news story, hear something about what a politician said, and he would literally scream and yell at the TV. Now, the TV, of course, could not hear him, but he would do it anyway. Now, this was way before social media where people could post things, right, if they're angry or upset. So he would shout at the TV, and my mother would say to him when they were married, you know, shouting at the TV is not going to resolve anything. It's just going to make you upset and sick. And in fact, my father suffered from high blood pressure and high cholesterol. He had his first heart attack around the age of 40, something, but it was very early 40s. And continued to have heart disease and high blood pressure and a lot of issues surrounding that. So in fact, his anger and his upsetness with world events, current events, and the news made him sick. It literally made him sick. Now, I'm not saying that was the only thing. A lot of people that cannot deal with being upset, being angry, and of course, being able to process those emotions properly through the proper channels can accumulate a lot of stress, which then leads to health-related problems, stress-related health problems. My dad was one of those people, of course, and it really wreaked havoc on his mental and physical health. And so when we're talking about the principle of Ahimsa or nonviolence, these are principles of yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga and the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. These are principles for living. And that's why I said, whether you're a yogi, a non-yogi, yoga is not even on your radar. Yoga philosophy is just way out there for you. These are just principles for living well, living holistically, living integrated in your body, mind, soul, and spirit so that you are not divided within yourself. So since this affected me so personally on a very personal level, I made the decision very early on. I was in my late 20s, actually. I made the decision very early on that that was not going to be me. Now, I had a lot of anger growing up. I grew up in a really tumultuous household, so I did deal with a lot of anger. I got better and better through therapy, through yoga, through meditation, and all the healthy practices. So when I was about 28, 29, I was studying to become a television journalist. Now, you know that the news, not great. So I even had internships at the local stations in Washington, D.C. I had an internship at CNN. And very soon after I was doing these internships, I saw that it was all negative. It was just all negative. And I had a come to Jesus moment where I said to myself, if this is going to be my life, I can't live like that. I can't live with all of this negativity. Because literally the news, all they do is scour for negativity. Believe me, I know. I was in those newsrooms for close to a year. So I know that that's what they're looking for. They're really looking for all the negative stuff. They're not really, positive stuff a little bit. They do human interest stories, especially the local news channels do human interest stories, but a large percentage of it are the drama stories, right? All the negativity, all the anger, all the violence. So after that, I made the decision that I was not going to watch the news, that I wasn't going to participate in that I was not going to pay attention to politics because that's all negative, not positive at all. And so let's look at this from the outside going in, and I'll give you examples. That way you can really reflect on whether or not violence is beginning with you. Okay, so let's go from the outside in. So from the outside, I've already spoken about looking at news stories that are violent or negative, listening to politicians that are negative, or criticizing others, or slamming others, or trying to make others feel bad, if you will. And then I spoke about television in general, where a lot of TV is just generally very negative. Now, there are some things that are positive, but overall it's pretty negative. So just talking about that and what comes into your sensory channels as far as this reinforcement of messages of violence. Why? Well, when you hear a negative story, when you hear something of violence or something very negative, how does that make you feel? Does it make you feel happy and joyful? Does it make you feel elated and you want to go kiss someone? Or does it make you feel frustrated and upset and fearful and doubtful? Well, all of those are really negative emotions, which negative emotions are the only emotions that lead to violence, right? Because a positive emotion is not going to lead to that path, ever. Never, 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 ever. It's the accumulation of the negative emotions that lead people toward violent words, violent vibrations, violent thoughts, and violent deeds. So if we start from the outside in, and so by listening to news stories like my dad shouting at the TV or maybe wanting to put his fist through the wall because he heard something on TV that just did not resonate with him, those thoughts led to a violent reaction. Hearing the news stories led to a violent reaction. And so when you hear something negative, when you read something negative, when you hear something about someone that was abused, someone that was kidnapped, whatever the case may be, if your reaction is a negative reaction, which we're human, so the tendency is going to be a negative reaction. If your reaction is negative, it's keeping you in lower vibrations. And if it keeps you in lower vibrations, every time you react in a lower vibration, it's going to lead to something that is more negative. It's just a compounding of the negative effect. So I have a friend, and I'll give you this example. I have a friend who I really enjoy this person's company in large groups or small groups. However, this friend who's kind of on the younger side of things and doesn't have as much life experience as I have. He is in this camp of division, if you will. So he says, okay, if I'm of a certain ethnicity, I'm not going to give it away because I think that's his private life. But if I'm of a certain ethnicity and other people are against me being a person of this certain ethnicity, I hate them. And so that idea of hate is generating violent thoughts within him, even if he doesn't act on them, right? Because hate is the polar opposite of love, meaning love is going to generate feelings of more love and compassion and empathy and seeing the other side of things and giving people the benefit of the doubt. Whereas hatred just kind of nixes all of that, right? Hatred is just like, you're wrong, I'm right, and I'm not going to move from my spot. That is going to generate more negative feelings. Now, why do I say this and why am I emphasizing this so much? From a spiritual perspective, we are all connected because we are all source energy. Now, we all have individual souls. We all have individual free will, but we are still so interconnected. So we are a collective consciousness. All of us that are living now on the planet, we are all a collective consciousness. So each person that contributes to negative thoughts, violent thoughts, even if you do not act upon them, like thoughts of hatred, thoughts of they think this way, I think this way, and therefore I do not like them, or I hate them, or I scorn them, or I find them wrong, and they're terrible people. Each time you think in that way, you are contributing to the collective consciousness of violence. Does that make sense? When we go there, when we go to that space of the outer world, there are groups of people that do not agree with the way I'm living my life or with the way that I am thinking, and therefore they are wrong, I am right, I don't like them. And you have any other negative emotions geared toward these people that you don't know, right? You don't know because you're just clumping them into a group. They are a clump now. They're not individuals. They're not individual people. They're just a clump with a label. And you put that label on them and you say bad people. And then that is generating more violence in the world because the thoughts of negativity are then projected on to those people. But it still keeps you as an individual in a negative state of mind, right? So I mentioned that we're going to go from the outside in. So let's get a little bit closer to home here. Each time you compare yourself to another person and have competitive thoughts, such as I am better than they are, even if these thoughts are very subtle. Now, let me preface this by saying that we are human. Even though we're spiritual beings having a human experience, we still have all the qualities of being a human being. And so it is fairly common. I'm not pointing fingers. It's very, very common in myself as well. It's very, very common for us to compare ourselves with others, okay? Or have a competitive mindset with others. So let me give you some examples. So if you look at someone and you're like, I don't like what they're wearing, that is ugly. They are ugly. Why would they dress like that? They look terrible. That's generating thoughts of violence, right? Because again, it's negativity. It's saying that you're judging them because you don't like what they're wearing. You think they look awful. And you are generating that negativity and again, projecting it onto them. The same thing when you put yourself in direct competition with someone else and you try to find fault with them. Now, there is healthy competition, right? Such as if you're running a race, that's generally healthy competition if you have a good mindset about it. If you're playing a game and you have a healthy sense of competition, but you don't have any ill will or negativity surrounding it, you're just like, hey, let's play and let's see who wins the game. And there might be some teasing, but it's all in good fun. I'm really talking about the competition of, for example, competing to get a lover and somebody else has the person you want and you're going toward them and you're like, that person's awful. Look at her. Look at how she's acting. She's a tramp. And you say all these things because you're feeling jealous that you are in competition with that other person for the affection of the person you want to be with. And then we tend to do this all the time, whether it's on the road. Look at the way that person's driving. They're such a jerk, right? Things like that. So every time we call names, we create judgments, we look at someone with scorn or anger or pity even, those are negative emotions that are generating thoughts that are geared more toward violent thinking, okay? Now, violence, it seems like an extreme word, right? Because when we think of violence, we usually think of something more fatal. But violent thinking starts small and then it snowballs, right? It starts very, very small. Now, let's move it inward to the inner circle a little bit more. So the inner circle are thoughts of negativity or thoughts of violence generated toward yourself. Now, I produced a video last week called Be Kinder to Yourself. I'm going to post that link here. Not many people viewed it. I'm like, why don't people want to be kinder to themselves? I know this hits home because so many people have very negative self-talk. So many people. Maybe people don't believe they have negative self-talk, and that's why they didn't want to view that video because they think, I don't have negative self-talk. I like myself. But if you really listen to the words that you say to yourself or the words that you think to yourself, a lot of people have really negative self-talk. If you look in the mirror and you say, hey, fatso, I'm fat, negative self-talk, right? Or if you say, like, I could never learn another language, I'm too old, negative self-talk, If you say to yourself, this is the best you can do, you could never get another job because you don't have the education, negative self-talk. When we have negative self-talk, that is generating thoughts of violence geared toward ourselves. And so when we say, I am a nonviolent person, I don't hit people, I don't punch them, I don't use violence with weapons toward other people, so I'm a nonviolent person. I'm a very peaceful person. I'm very peaceful, in fact. It goes so much deeper than that when we talk about Ahimsa, which is that principle of nonviolence or non-harming, so much deeper than that. Because that violent thinking is a vibration, right? It's a very low vibration, but it is a vibration. And if you're moving through life with anger, with frustration, with pointing fingers, judgment, division even, right? Division, those feelings of division, as I mentioned, my friend is saying, like, if they don't like the ethnicity I am, then I hate them, right? So that's a divisive thought. And each time you have this sense of wanting to divide rather than unite, that is a violent thought. So I know this is sometimes difficult to understand these more esoteric principles when we generally see things as very black and white, right? Generally, as humans, our human brain really likes to categorize things into black or white. It's really hard for us to consider that there's a spectrum of things that have a lot of gray area in the middle. If you're really worried, and you have been worried about the world at large, and you are worried about wars and violence and conflicts and fighting and divisiveness and current events, and it's really been concerning you, and you're like, where is this world going to? Where are we headed? Go ahead and just take a look at your day today. Take a look at your thoughts, what you're viewing, how your conversations go. Even having an argument with a spouse or your children or your parents or your siblings or your friends, even having an argument there is generating that violent mindset, right? So look at yourself and your own behavior, and look at yourself and your own thoughts, because if you feel that violence is somewhere out there, it's not. Violence is not somewhere out there. We are a collectivity. We live in collective consciousness. And if enough people live in peacefulness and mindfulness, then the scales will tip in the other direction. Will we get rid of violence altogether? The answer is no, because we are in a world of duality. We live in a world of contrast. That's just what we signed up for. But we can certainly tip the scales in favor of peacefulness, lovingness, rather than having those scales tipped in the opposite direction. So I hope this was helpful in expanding this meaning of the first Yama, of the first limb of yoga. And even if you're not a yogi, you could certainly benefit from studying a little bit of yoga philosophy. And it really helps you to integrate the aspects of yourself so you're feeling more peaceful on the day-to-day. So I want to thank you so much for joining me here today. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. If you're not yet subscribed, go ahead and click on the bell so you receive all notifications. Give the video a thumbs up, put something in the comments section below. Thank you so much for your support of my YouTube channel. You can purchase one of my 12 published books. You can join one of my courses. Check out my website. There's so many resources there. And I will see you in the next video.